Hello, good evening, everyone. So we are back again, and this is the third in the series of webcasts that I am doing uh, for CSE preparation prelims 2020. And as we discussed in my first episode or first webcast, I discussed the exact agenda of the thing. In the previous one, we took up chapter 4. We started with ecology subject, and we took up chapter 4, which was aquatic ecosystem, and we finished those. I hope that you were with me in that video and you also did a revision, and you must be comfortable by now regarding what we discussed. If not, not a problem. You can still go back. That video is there. It's saved, so you can use it and you can revise. So for today, without much ado, I'll begin. So as I had put in the message, today we are doing chapter 5 from our yes. So our material in this entire effort in this exercise is Shankar IAS Ecology booklet, and which says Environment Shankar IAS Academy. We are using that booklet. So in that booklet, the chapter 5 is environmental pollution. It's one of the favorites of UPSC, especially because here in India we are struggling with various problems of pollution, and that's why a special focus of UPSC on that. Quickly, I would like to, and also today in today's session, I'll be sharing with you my entire plan for next 21 days, which is up till 27th of this month, the way we are going to go about our preparation, what subjects are we going to cover. I'll be also discussing that for next 7 days, what are the areas that we are going to cover from this particular ecology booklet especially. Again, a quick disclaimer I want to put in is that while I'm using the New Age IAS channel, मैं किसी भी तरीके से इससे कोई इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट नहीं ड्रॉ कर रहा हूँ, एंड न्यू एज आईएएस भी इससे कोई इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट नहीं ड्रॉ कर रहा है. आइडिया ये है कि जिन बच्चों की पढ़ाई की किसी भी वजह से मोमेंटम स्लो हो गई है, उनको पेस पकड़ाना, वो हमारे help them run with us in this race so that they can finish up their preparation well within time. That is one. So let us begin. Yeah. And yes, about the reviews, there was a review by one of the persons which said कि ये काफी slow जा रहा है. People were hoping it is faster because, well, most of the people who are joining us are the ones that are in that are pretty familiar with these chapters, and they would expect us to run very fast, just give a brief idea which are the important areas, and that's about it, so that they can just to set pace. Agreed. It was I'll try and keep that in mind. So yes, let us begin. What are the chapters that we are going to cover? So 80 days remain by my calculation. So today we are going to cover, kindly take a note of it, make some sort of column. I'll put this in an Excel sheet in the Telegram group so that you can download and use it. So today we are going to cover chapter 5. Then then tomorrow, which is 9th, we'll be covering chapter 1 and chapter 2 of this booklet. Chapter 1 being our introductory chapter. This is a very small area, just two topics which I saw, which I found relevant, and only those two topics I'll be discussing. Then chapter 2, which is functions of an ecosystem, an extremely important chapter, whereas they have not given a lot of they have not covered a lot of topics which I find relevant. So I'll be trying to discuss with you areas such as energy budget and all that, hopefully, so that yeah. Thereafter, we are left with we come to 10th. On 10th, we'll be trying to cover chapter 3, which is terrestrial ecosystem. 4 and 5 we have completed. So on 11th, we'll be going to chapter 6, which is renewable energy, and chapter 7, environmental issues. Regarding chapter 7, I would like to say again, there are hardly one or two areas that I would want to discuss. Areas such as palm oil and environmental issues, because that is something which was in news of late, because India had taken certain measures to reduce the palm oil import because of certain comments made by the Malaysian Prime Minister regarding the political situation in India. So palm oil becomes important in this scenario. Similarly, there were other one or two things that I wanted to discuss in chapter 7, which is environmental issues. This will be happening on 11th, but in very short. 6 we will be doing in detail, chapter 6. Now, chapter 8 I intend to skip entirely because it is on environmental impact assessment. And for this, I am quitting. I do not want to cover this area because in our country, environmental impact assessment is highly subjective. So for prelims purpose, I do not see how an objective question can be constructed, even if it is somehow constructed. Remember, little deductive reasoning and little common sense, and you should be very comfortable in answering any question that comes out of environmental impact assessment. Then moving on. So 11th we did chapter 6 and 7. On 12th I intend to cover chapter 12 and 14, right? Chapter 12 and 14 is plant diversity and protected area network. When I discuss protected area network, I would be concentrating on very specific topics. Literally certain words which I'll be discussing is these man and biosphere, the MAB program, biosphere reserves, biodiversity hotspots and such. So that's my plan regarding chapter 14. I'll be trying to cover it in very short. Chapter 13, I'll be discussing today because, well, this was part of our aquatic ecosystem and I did not discuss it yesterday. I missed it somehow. So I'll be discussing chapter 13 as well today. Let me take it down. Chapter 13. Yes. So, and then we come to 13th. On 13th, we will be discussing chapter 17, which is climate change, very important, and chapter 20, which is impact of climate change in India. So yes, chapter 17 and 20 we'll be taking up on 13th, whereas chapter 18 and 19 are simply, very, very short topics such as ozone depletion. They have dedicated entire chapter to it. However, we'll keep it short to a 5-minute discussion on these. Okay, then we come to 14th, on which we'll be taking chapter 21. And finally, 15th, on which I'll be taking chapter 24. This is our plan. Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 14, 17, 20, 21, and 24 are the only chapters that we'll be covering while we do our preparation for ecology prelims. Breast chapters we can skip. I hope that it's not too much of a risk, even if I'm sure that you might be able to answer a lot of questions by simple reasoning. Okay, let us begin. So today I'll not be in a very descriptive mode. Instead, I'll be just giving you dropping words, and if you have not covered them, then you can put in a comment so that we can keep the length of this video short. If you do not find this format very comfortable, do tell me. Okay, so I see 5.1. So 5.1 has certain words. It's got it says primary pollutants, primary pollutants, secondary pollutants, very self-explanatory. There is a word that comes which is peroxyacetyl nitrate, pan. I want to keep this word in mind. I want you to make that column, on the right side of the column put pan separately, because we'll be taking it when we discuss photochemical smog. So yes, further para 5.1.1 is something which we are not discussing in detail. We go to air pollution and directly the major components in air pollution. And and here it, in very short, I would say carbon monoxide, everybody knows, carbon dioxide, chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. There is another term which I do not see here, which is HFC, hydrofluorocarbons, right? So, and then comes lead, then ozone, then suspended particulate matter, and sulfur dioxide, which is here in the booklet. I would want you to add hydrofluorocarbons in this list, and nitrous oxides as well, nitrogen oxides as well in this list of pollutants. So these two are missing. Please add those in your list. Okay, so how are CFCs and HFCs a problem? That is when we see our ozone depleting substances, the ODS. We see that chapter, which is chapter, please turn to chapter 18 in your booklet. And you see this chapter is regarding ODS, ozone depleting substances. And in para 19.1.2, which is the very first page, 211, they tell us CFC. So here is our culprit in ozone depletion, CFC, chlorofluorocarbon. And where are chlorofluorocarbons popularly used? They are used as refrigerants. They are used as aerosol sprays, right, foaming agent, and many other such. The list is given here. Then if you see the then you turn to the next page, and there is another ozone depleting substance here, which is nitrogen oxides, right? So nitrogen oxides, again, very short description. You can read it and you can understand how it affects the ozone system. And where are hydrofluorocarbons? Okay, this book does not have hydrofluorocarbons. Please include it in your list and Google it. If you're still uncomfortable, do tell me. I'll discuss that in detail. So that's about CFCs. Then comes lead. Okay, and they have given the various damages that it can cause. I'll come down directly to suspended particulate matters, because these are particulate matters which you regularly hear the term PM 2.5 and PM 10. Particulate matter PM stands for particulate matter. 2.5 is 2.5 microns, which is particulate matters which are less than 2.5 microns. And when you say PM10, particulate matter which is less than 10 microns. So these are the two major suspended particles which cause health hazards. So that's that, and then there is sulfur dioxide. Then we come directly to the part where there is discussion on formation of photochemical smog. So here there is photochemical smog. They have discussed as you can see 5.2.2, where they discuss photochemical smog is term used to describe air pollution that is result of interaction of sunlight with certain chemicals and atmosphere. Okay, so there are certain chemicals that are pollutants in the air. These include VOC, volatile organic compounds, VOC. What are those? Those could be paints, sprays, anything which tends to, which has a low boiling point, it evaporates, it's very volatile, and thereafter it gets suspended in the air. That is VOC for you. Then there is nitrogen oxides, and there is your peroxyacetyl nitrate, PAN. All these are the chemicals which, when they come in contact with sunlight, they react and cause a haze, a brownish haze that spreads, that lies very low to in the atmosphere. There is another pollutant, ozone. While it's while we discuss ozone, we say ozone is important for our Earth. It is important, but that is when it is way high up in the air, which is popularly known as ozone layer, because there it prevents harmful rays from coming inside Earth. There is a reaction up there where that in when the harmful rays take part in that reaction, in the process they get destroyed, and they do not come inside. However, when ozone develops in the lower atmosphere, it becomes a pollutant because it is also a contributing factor in photochemical smog. What is the problem that photochemical smog can do? Photochemical smog can cause eye burns, irritation, dryness in nose, respiratory problems in respiration of children. All the pollution related problems that people in urban cities in India these days face during winter, especially Delhi NCR. The biggest contributor to those are these pollutants that we are discussing right now. Of course, its brothers are always there. Carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, and those are always there, and suspended particle matters. But especially the burning, that chemical burning, itching, burning sensation, the dryness of respiratory tracts, these things are happening out of your photochemical smog that is getting formed in that part of that time of the year. So that's that. I hope it's clear. There is a very nice box para which is given. Ground level ozone is formed through complex reaction involving hydrocarbons, nitrogen oxides, and sunlight. It is formed when pollutants released from gasoline, diesel-powered vehicles, and oil-based solvents react with heat and sunlight. Well, we discussed it. Just keep in mind. Then, a very important area that I wanted to discuss, the rest is pretty common sense based, is indoor air pollution. One of the most ignored areas is indoor air pollution. So here is what is indoor air pollution. Indoor air pollution, especially in context of India, are two types. One, which is in context of urban India, and other which is in context of rural India. I'll take up rural India first. Well, rural India has a major problem of fuel. The fuel used in household are fuel that tends to that's a wood fuel. The efficiency of burning in such fuel is very less. It is either coal, charcoal, wood, or any such fuel where the efficiency of burning is not that great. So it tends to release of lot of tar, which comprises of suspended particle matters, PM 2.5 and 10. Number one. Number two, it also comprises of carbon dioxide. And number three, बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ दिस हटमेंट्स जो झोपड़ियां हैं वो बहुत छोटी हैं, तो कई बार इन carbon a lot of times carbon monoxide also tends to form. Carbon monoxide forms when carbon burns in deficiency of oxygen. When oxygen is in limited supply, instead of forming carbon dioxide, it tends to start forming carbon monoxide, and this is a problem in rural India. This problem had become a major health hazard, which WHO had pointed out a lot of time, that rural India health problem is also arising out of indoor air pollution. And government's Ujjwala Yojana was basically to address this problem. That household coal or wood burning should stop, and people should shift to a cleaner energy, which is LPG, due to which subsidized LPG and stoves for LPG were given to people in the villages. People in the villages. So yeah, that's how government addressed our problem of rural indoor pollution, and that is majorly how rural indoor pollution happens. On the other hand, urban indoor pollution is something which is caused due to is firstly word urban, so in urban areas, and it is caused due to the two factors: the products or the things that are there in urban households, and the ventilation that is available in urban households. Products, well, the paint, the culprits of indoor air pollution in urban India are volatile organic compounds, which generally originate out of the sprays such as deodorants, perfumes, or any other aerosol material that we use. Any aerosol material that are used at homes. Then so there is a long list of this. Then there are certain biological pollutants. So here's the thing. We are said that we should have indoor plants, but there is a side effect to it, that certain plants do tend to release a lot of pollens, and pollens are a major pollutant when it comes to indoor air pollution. And this is also a problem in a lot of cities in India, where you might hear about pollen pollution. So pollens are another indoor air pollutant. Then there is formaldehyde. Formaldehyde specially arises out of our carpets, our compressed particle boards, from which majorly the furnitures in India these days are made, and insulation foams that are there, and few other things. But that is formaldehyde, which is another problematic indoor air pollutant. Yes, there are certain households which use parts which have asbestos, and asbestos, as very commonly known, is also a major pollutant. Then pesticides, which we use for our pest control, for our mosquito repellents, by the way, the aerosol based are have twin problems. Firstly, pesticide, and secondly, the VOCs that are released from them. So that's that. There is radon here, which again, as you can see. So that's urban indoor pollution for you. I would want you to remember that, because that has not been asked in UPSC till now, as far as I remember. Moving on, I see fly ash. Ash is what? It is the when coal is burnt in any place, be it a furnace or a thermal power plant, any furnace where coal is burnt so as to take energy. The remaining the remaining burnt coal, which is not of use, is fly ash. Fly ash earlier was dumped in open sites for used for construction material on roads. However, now the government is trying to use fly ash as brick building material, so that fly ash can be effectively disposed of and used. If fly ash is openly dumped, it does tend to release PM, suspended particulate matters, which again is a pollutant. So there is composition of fly ash that has been given here. You can read that. We go ahead and look at there's a long list of what kind of health problems pollutants can create. And here's again my guidance, that just remember broadly what kind of, you do not need to memorize this, just remember broadly what kind of problems they can create, and you should be fine. So yes, we go ahead and move directly to our next topic, which is, I hope I'm not missing any topic here. Yes, so our next topic is para 5.3, water pollution. Again, self-explanatory. I would want you to just quickly go through it. Water pollution, like we discussed yesterday, nutrient loading as well as chemical loading, eutrophication caused due to pollution can kill the organisms in water, and of course the dumping of sewage, chemical waste from tanneries and from various industries also lead to a lot of water pollution. It's given here. Thermal pollution. Thermal pollution is when water which is above the temperature of a normal water body is dumped into a water body. So thermal pollution. This is again is self-explanatory. No need for much discussion here. There is moving on. We have this big box where there is DO, BOD, and COD. Yesterday, I was using this term again and again, biological oxygen demand. In our book here, we see biochemical oxygen demand. Well, those are one and the same thing. You need not confuse about it. Somewhere it is referred as biochemical. In fact, popularly it is referred as biochemical. As I saw in my, I went through a few articles and I realized that most of the people tend to use biochemical oxygen demand. However, biological and biochemical oxygen demand are one and the same thing. Okay. Then again, there is discussion on groundwater pollution. Yes, groundwater pollution is an important discussion for the purpose of UPSC, because our government's Swachh Bharat program, the major emphasis of Swachh Bharat program is open defecation free, India. And that is because a lot of open defecation is leading to groundwater pollution. And this groundwater pollution has become a major health problem, as pointed out by various international as well as Indian agencies. Water has become a carrier of lot of pathogens, because India has this thing. Plus, the practice of in our country to dump of open sewage dumping has led to percolation of such pollutants in water, which again is pulled out and consumed. So groundwater pollution is important thing. I would want you to have a look at this. Groundwater pollution is also caused due to two more very important things that I want to discuss here is overdrawing of water through tube wells or any other way can lead to major groundwater pollution. How? Because this leads to due to osmotic pressure, due to fall of pressure gradient, a lot of water which has certain harmful chemicals elements in it, such as arsenic, uh, will tend to flow in our normal groundwater. And arsenic, as we know, is very harmful. Similarly, groundwater pollution can also happen due to the dumping of e-wastes, because e-waste eventually will the chemicals that are involved in an e-waste will get dissolved and will eventually reach our water and our food cycle. So that's the major problem. Acha, there is a discussion. Arsenic contamination is serious problem in tube well dug areas. Oh, I did not see that. They have discussed this. So have a look at this. On this note, I'll just want to put a side note that there is another cause that there is another thing that is of much concern regarding groundwater pollution and also regarding our estuaries, which I forgot to discuss yesterday. And this is, there was a discussion that there was a discussion about 2 years back in one of the newspapers regarding a reservoir being constructed on the Mandovi River in Mandovi River, which actually, Panaji is on Mandovi River, Panaji, Goa, and Mandovi gets connected to Arabian Sea there. Sorry, Arabian Ocean. Sorry, I'm so sorry. So now there was this discussion that if a reservoir gets constructed in the upper reaches of Mandovi, the amount of fresh water flow will decrease, eventually resulting that if this is Mandovi and this is the ocean, and if the freshwater flow from Mandovi decreases, what will happen is a backflow of ocean water will happen in the lower reaches of Mandovi, which is connected to the sea. This will cause two effects. Firstly, it will change the entire ecology of Mandovi here. Salt water entering the traditional flora and fauna will have to leave this place. They'll either die or they'll have to flow back. So this will have two effects. Firstly, loss of ecosystem. Secondly, economic loss, because people living in this area are used to consumption of a certain kind of fish, a certain kind of flora and fauna, which is growing in this lower reaches of Mandovi. And secondly, this saltwater black flow will ultimately also go in the groundwater of Panaji, leading into groundwater in Panaji, which will be unfit for drinking. And there was a lot of resistance that came from the state government, and it is and that's an important factor. So we need to keep in mind that a river system, or any other system for that matter, if it is disrupted too much, there will be such consequences ultimately. One of which is groundwater pollution. Okay. So that was a little off topic, but I would want you to keep that in mind. This would go a good way in your mains preparation. So that's mostly about our water pollution. There are control measures that have been given. Again, most of it is self-explanatory. I want you to just read it. Okay, here's the thing. On point 7, they have said water hyacinth can purify water by taking some toxic materials and number of heavy materials from the water. True, but do not use it in your answer. Because for our purpose, water hyacinth does more damage than good. Water hyacinth has been found to be a little, it has found to capture pollutants, but as a, as a filtration technique, we do not consider it very wise for our country's position. So further, we have soil pollution. Again, there are various here. You can read it. Then comes noise pollution, radiation, radioactive, and e-waste. So e-waste is a very important part. This I would want you to read thoroughly, because because recently we had certain government policies regarding disposal of e-waste coming in. E-waste has one major e-waste which is in discussion, which is hexavalent chromium. Hexavalent chromium is, it's protector of steel. So hexavalent chromium might be used in places where there are boilers, which are certain kind of boilers which are made of steel. Here hexavalent chromium is used, and when this water is discharged in normal areas, then this water causes pollution, leading to severe disabilities, including cancer, including miscarriages in pregnant women and such. There's a very good movie, Erin Brockovich, which discusses hexavalent chromium and its effect in US. Might as well go ahead and see it when you want a break. Excellent movie to watch. Okay, so then there is number of e-waste that have been listed out. I would want you to go through them. So yes, then there is solid waste that has been discussed. Again, most of this is simple reading. Just go ahead and have a look at them. Only the words might be remembered, and it's more than sufficient. Here is a word that comes, which is pyrolysis, at 5.8.5, page 68. Pyrolysis 0.5. So this is burning of waste in absence of oxygen, and this is an alternative to incineration, because this produces the byproduct that is produced in pyrolysis can be used as fuels. The downside to pyrolysis is that pyrolysis in itself is a very energy consuming process. So two things: combustion of waste in an environment free of oxygen is pyrolysis. The benefits are that the consumption of oxygen is less, and that the byproduct is a fuel. This fuel comes only in limited use, but yes, it is a fuel. However, the downside is that India is already deficient, and pyrolysis is a energy consuming method to dispose solid waste. So that's, yeah. Then there is composting and vermiculture, which is again, as we know, composting is when biodegradable and mostly waste such as waste which are plant based are taken, and they are put in pits, and to them we add certain decomposing agents, So what are these decomposing agents? These might be mainly microorganisms, fungi, and bacteria, a cocktail of those, which is put in, which tend, and then it is covered. This entire process helps speed up the process of decomposition. What remains is something which can be used as fertilizer. That is your composting. Vermiculture is when an earthworm is introduced in a in a collection of waste, and the earthworm uh, eats that waste, and and releases the excreta in a form which is much more usable in the soil. So that's your composting and vermiculture. There is we talked about pyrolysis, when consumption, and then there is another, which is incineration. Incineration is burning of waste in oxygen efficient environment. Sorry, oxygen, where there is sufficient environment, then what is called as incineration. Okay, so that's how we dispose our solid waste. Then there is thermal pollution. Its effects are given, which is a small read. So we have, after this, we have another term, which is bioremediation. And this is, and I would want to discuss this in very short. So bioremediation is when you use certain microorganisms to degrade the environmental pollutants. Kindly give me a second. I have certain disturbances coming from the background. I'll get back again. All right, there is certain event that is going on in my neighborhood, which, but yeah. So yes, there is bioremediation, and there are different ways of bioremediation. Okay, sorry for that break. Bioremediation is when an organism is added into a polluted area or a polluted environment, and this organism consumes that the toxins in the environment, the pollutants in the environment. This is bioremediation. Bioremediation are of two types. One is in situ, यानी in situ मतलब जिस एरिया में है उसी एरिया में आप माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स ऐड करें और उसे ट्रीट कर लें. This is in situ. And then there is ex situ, which is you take out the pollutant area, put it somewhere, and then introduce those organisms so that your remediation can happen. Then there are various methodologies that are given for remediation, which is bioremediation, bioventing, biosparging, and bioaugmentation. Just read it and keep it in mind. Then there is land farming, biofiles, and bioreactors for ex situ bioremediation. Again, words and definitions that you just need to remember. Then we come to the genetic engineering approaches. I would say that we give this entire area a skip, an entire area after this a skip. Just quickly have a look at 5.13 and remember this entire list of pollutants. Just have a look at it. You don't need to memorize it. You do not need to see at the you might have a look slightly at the source of exposure. As far as injury produce is concerned, you can do that by your own common sense and a little reasoning that goes behind it. So that's mostly about chapter 5. I try to keep it very short today. I know I have not been much explanatory. That's because a lot of my viewers who reviewed said that, well, we only need a hint as to what we need to study, and thereafter, since we have already studied, we'll put a very concentrated approach in it. So okay, fine, all the best. And if at all you feel that you need a detailed discussion on these, kindly put a message on our Telegram group or a message here in YouTube, and we shall take it up uh, as soon as time allows us. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Tomorrow we will be joining with chapter 1 and 2. And before that, if you can kindly give me a little feedback whether you want a detailed discussion or a short discussion, I can figure out how to go about it, this series further. Yeah. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Do revise this chapter, and if you have any doubts, do let me know. Thank you.